I'm looking at all the comments. It just looks so lovely. Hello, everybody. Hello. We love you too.
There's a big roar from, who was that from?
I think that's from Sharon.
That's from Sally. Roar.
That's from Sally.
That was gonna be one of my questions, actually. Have you been practicing your own roar?
Yeah, I should do it. I have this horrible fear of like standing on the stage and doing a roar, just this kind of pathetic whimper coming out. So yeah.
Brilliant.
Great. Oh, that's my stepson as well. Oh, I know, Connor.
Harriet, do you want to go early, or do you want to save yourself to the end?
I don't mind, whatever you prefer. I'm happy to.
Why don't you stay there, and we'll do your bit at the start. Anyway, it's now 7:01. We should have started, and we have, and we're over the 100 mark. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to Hannah. Thank you to Hannah/Harriet. And it's a wonderful little crowd that we've got here. I'm going to just give you the rules. There is a Q&A function, which you will have spotted at the bottom of the screen. That's for questions. I'll keep monitoring that throughout the event. Let's get that ready. There's also a chat function. Now, put stuff there if you want. If I see it, I see it. If I don't, Hannah's going to watch it as well. So if we do spot anything, I can already see 21 messages I've not read. So, but if you've got a specific question, it's much easier if you stick it in the Q&A box. But,
that's me waving at the chat box, by the way, because I'm seeing everybody's names come up. So it's people from America and so lovely.
Oh, they're all over, all over. To be brutally honest, I spent all of today packaging up books to send. It's been carnage. That includes last night's event, which many of you came to. It's very rare I have to think about what shirt I'm wearing. Don't repeat the same shirt twice. But listen, thank you all. And without further ado, can I hand over to Hannah's editor, Harriet?
Yes, hi. So as Ben said, I have the incredible privilege of being Hannah's editor, which is a truly wonderful thing to be. And as such, I just wanted to take this opportunity in front of all of you to congratulate you, Hannah, on the publication day of this truly remarkable, beautiful book. A book which Michael Morpurgo has called deeply moving, beautifully told, and quite unforgettable. And he's not wrong. As soon as I began to read The Last Bear, I knew that I was encountering something really rare. A breathtaking, talented author out in the wild, which is a truly magnificent and powerful creature indeed. But of course, a talent like yours, Hannah, is rather like a polar bear ambling across your eye line. It's hard to miss. And just about every other publisher in London also wanted to woo this extraordinary writer. And so we had to roll out the publishing equivalent, I suppose, of April's jar of peanut butter in the hope that we could persuade you to come on a life-changing journey for all of us with us. And I think for all of us at HarperCollins, the first meeting with Hannah was really, really memorable for many reasons.
I cried.
We made you cry, which, you know, is not the aim we had at the beginning, but actually I think, you know, hearing you talk with such passion, as I'm sure you will do shortly, and eloquently about your work, it just felt like there was such a great connection with you, with Bear, with the team, and we just wanted to make HarperCollins your home. And we're so glad that you chose us. We could not be prouder to publish this book. Your characters really work their way into your heart. Your prose is as clear and sparkling as the Arctic ice. You evoke this huge landscape, but you notice the tiny nuances of human and animal emotion and behaviour within it. You know, you've created this character, Bear, who has no dialogue and yet has such a distinct personality. And for me as well, that the relationship that you've observed between April and Dad, I mean, it rends your heart until, Hannah, you so tenderly put it back together. I think it is a book that really, really will stay with readers for a lifetime and will bear, you know, many, many reads at different stages in a reader's life. And perhaps most importantly, it leaves you with, and the reader, with a sense of hope. And as Fiona Noble said when she's writing in The Bookseller, you know, you give April, and therefore young readers, the agency to make an impact and to make a change. And I think that's so important for them. You've already got loads of incredible reviews, but I know there are many more to come. The bookseller has selected you as this February's book of the month. Waterstones is cited elsewhere as one to look out for in 2021. We've sold rights in lots of different territories around the world. And award-winning illustrator Levi Pinfold had a crazy schedule when we first approached him, but he loved your text so much that he really sort of moved everything around because it was important. He really wanted to come on board. And he gave us some beautiful, beautiful visuals. So it's been an absolute pleasure and a real honor working with you so far to this point. But this is just the start of the journey, and I'm so excited that the world is about to meet Bear, meet April, and to hear your roar. So I just wanted to say thank you, congratulations, and enjoy it. And I'll hand back to you guys.
Thank you, Harriet. That was wonderful. Hannah, before Harriet goes, do you want a little response?
Oh, that meeting. Well, first of all, like to be with a publisher like HarperCollins was just a dream come true. When I was younger, I always used to dream of it being HarperCollins, and my publishing journey is like many other authors. It had its ups and downs. So, but when I wrote Bear, I kind of knew that he was quite special. But when we went to auction and you offered, and meeting you, and I was so overwhelmed, and I was crying in the meeting. But it's just been, I knew you were the right ones in that moment. I just knew, the things that you and Janine and Nick said about the book, it just really touched me. And from that point onwards, it's just, I've never regretted it. You've just made all my dreams come true. And the level at which he's succeeding and going out there, it's just beyond everything. But what I really want for Bear, and you kind of match my ambition and my love, and it's really grateful. And it's just a joy to work with you and Erica as well. You're like a friend now, and it's just really lovely. So
you make me cry now.
Yeah, I have the habit of doing that, don't I? So yeah, but it's just, everything's just been amazing, Harriet, amazing. And I got this, they sent me this lovely print today off the book, and it was just gorgeous. So
Lovely. Thank you very much, Harriet.
I will turn myself off.
It's the first time
I'll still be here listening to you.
Wonderful. Thanks ever so much. Good. So Hannah, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for asking Our Bookshop in Tring to host your launch. Now, I thought we would just cover off quickly why you chose Our Bookshop in Tring, and that comes back to where you grew up. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I can see Harriet's Hannah Gold there, just to say that there isn't another Hannah Gold, that's Harriet there. Yeah, I grew up in Tring, so those are people who are here and know my story. I know that I come from Tring, like my mum and dad are here on this as well, and my aunt and uncle, and some of my cousins and sort of my school friends. But for those of you that don't know, I grew up in Tring. I was born at Stoke Mandeville. I went to Grove Junior, Grove Infants. I went to Tring School, and I remember the original bookshop on the High Street, and it was opposite the library where you are now. And I just
about 3 doors down.
Yeah, and I just remember Mum used to take me to the library, and I used to pick up a pile of books and come home and stack them in the order that I'd read them. And yeah, so Tring for me, when I knew that you had reopen the bookshop under a new ownership, and I saw that you were doing so well, and I think, Ben, you're amazing at what you do for authors and the events that you put on and your reach, and I decided to come and worm my way into your good books.
I think you cornered me outside the shop.
I came there and I was like, Ben.
But you did the right thing. You cornered Alison as well, so that's always the right way to go. But you're just lucky to catch me, frankly. I'm always rushing around, but no, it's an honor to have you, an ex-Tringite. But it's very rare people leave Tring. Once you're in Tring, it's kind of like it's in your heart. But
I remember really sort of being desperate to go, but that's not a reflection on Tring. That was just more my love of travel and wanting to discover the world, which you can sort of see in the book. Yeah. But when I came back, it was really lovely to sort of come back there last year, and it didn't, to come back for the book launch, it just feels so perfect.
Brilliant. And just as an aside, Hannah's going to join us on World Book Day, which is the 4th of March, where we're doing an 11 o'clock stream into schools across the region, but primarily hosted Grove Road infants, which that's going to be lovely. I think Tring School as well are going to be streaming it for their year 7, so that's going to be lovely. I might hopefully try and have a few surprises at that event as well. So let's talk book. Let's talk bear. Where did bear come from? Where did the idea for this book arise?
It started actually because I just wanted to write a children's book. I'd had like a rejection on a young adult book I'd written a couple of years previously, and I'd got really close with that, but I'd always wanted to write a children's book. And I kind of was going through I suppose, a more unhappy time in my life, which some of my closer friends will know about. And I just wanted to do something back for me. And I decided to write the children's book because it was the book that I really wanted to write always, but I've been putting it off. And then I just want to write about everything that I love most in the world. And for me, what was important is obviously animals. I've always had animals, that love that we can feel between us and our pets, and the natural world. So it came from a point of view of following my dreams, but also wanting to write about everything that I just loved most in the world.
And was authoring something you even had in your head, even as far back as when you lived in Tring?
Yeah, I've always wanted to be a children's author. Like, I think, that was the one subject at school I really excelled at. And I remember like my English teachers at Tring School, I was terrible at things like maths and science. And my dad always laughs because when I did things like history and had to do these stories, I'd actually make up some of the historical facts and just embellish it because I just got carried away with my sort of creativity. So it was always something I wanted to do. And it probably wasn't until a couple of years ago, I just thought, I'm just really going to go for it.
Brilliant. And an email question that came through earlier feels apt at this point. Jan Sprenger.
Yeah, Jan Sprenger. She's a friend of mine from the Isle of Wight.
How did the idea of the bear come to you? Was it in a rush, fully formed, or did you chew the idea over for telling a story about a polar bear until it developed?
I can't even remember the moment that I decided to write a polar bear. It was just sort of, but one day there he was, and this is what I said in the author's note. I felt like he was really there in my consciousness, and it sounds a little bit woo, but then when I started kind of connecting with him in that imaginary world, I realized that there was like a story that he wanted to tell me. And so when I sat down where to research it, that's when I found Bear Island. And I thought, my God, this is just amazing. I found the perfect place to set my book. And then when I discovered, because it never was supposed to be a climate fiction book at all, it was just going to be this animal book. But when I discovered the history behind Bear Island, which I think we were going to talk about a little bit, about how polar bears used to live there, or go there every winter from Svalbard. But these days, because the sea ice has retracted, the polar bears can't reach the island which bears their name. It just became this very tight focused story. I'm going to tell this book about a polar bear who's stranded on an island thanks to this climate change, and about a young girl who's desperate to make a difference.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm getting some lovely questions, and actually some questions from much younger audiences. So
yeah.
I must give them a shout out. Imogen, yes. Age 6. How did you decide you wanted to be an author? I need to do questions when it's from someone so young.
Yeah, and there's one from Thomas, age 7 as well. So how did I decide? I think I just knew. I think it was just the subject that I really loved doing. The one that I was good at, I think, is the proper answer. It was the one subject that I was good at. So I thought, if I'm good at it, I'm gonna go for it. Because I loved reading as well. I was a real bookworm.
Brilliant. So, and Tamlin wrote a message earlier as well, an email. Tamlin Francis, she was instrumental in putting you together with Levi Pinfold, I think, for the illustrations, which are absolutely stunning. And I have to say, I've actually only got my proof copy here, but
I'll hold up actually because I wanted to show you my favourite illustration. Okay. And actually, it links to Thomas's question: what is your favourite part of the book, which is in the chat box. Okay. So just to answer that, it is the part where April and Bear travel to the top of the mountain where she's riding on his back, and then we can see it there. This is the it's amazing, isn't it?
It's stunning artwork. I mean, it is a work of art.
Yeah. And this is the print that HarperCollins gave me today, that they sent me.
What I got in the proof, which obviously everyone else did, is you just get blank pages.
Blank spaces, yeah.
That's the same page to me. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm.
Mine's a bit better.
Yeah, yours is most definitely better. But so Tamlin asked the question, I really enjoyed reading the book and found it very moving. I imagine if I was a child, I would find it inspirational and maybe life-changing. Is there a book that you remember reading as a child that inspired you to change?
I think I read so much, and so just generally speaking, just any book which offered like a different outlet to a different, you know, to a new world, to a book like Narnia, which was so escapist for me. But if we're talking like maybe encouraging me to change, my grandparents on my dad's side, they got me the What Katie Did and What Katie Did Next series, which are quite old fashioned now, but it's about this rebellious kind of girl who learns to be better. And that was quite influential. It was about, you know, becoming a better person in life. And that's always like a value I've always tried to follow. How can I be the best that I can be, and a kind person, not just to myself, but obviously to the planet.
Fantastic. So you've created the idea of Bear and April, and you've got the fully formed idea. Christine Laluani
Yes,
asked a lovely question. At what point did you know you were creating something special?
I know Christine. Christine's like a really, really lovely person. I just, you know, like in my previous two books, they felt, my YA books, they felt really laboured. And although they were quite good at the end, they took a lot of work to get there. But when I was writing the first draft of Bear, and I call him Bear, I knew in the writing, it almost came out fully formed. And it only took 3 months to write the first draft. And that first draft that we see is not that dissimilar to the finished draft that we actually see in the book. Yeah, it's been refined a bit, but the whole final third is pretty much exactly the same, almost word for word, to be honest with you, in parts. It's been obviously, you know, tightened a bit, but I just knew when I was writing it. And I hear that question a lot. Some people say I knew it was special when somebody tells you that it was special, but for me, I just an instinct. I knew, like when you meet your partner, when I met my partner Chris, who's downstairs watching it, and I met him, I knew he was the one, and he's, you know, the love of my life. I knew when I was writing the book, I thought, this is the one that's going to get me my agent, and it's going to get me my breakthrough. And I just knew he was special, just got instinct.
Fantastic. And April, the character of April, is she the adventurous nature of her? Is that you as well? Is that?
I think she's a lot braver than me. I think, but especially when I was that age, I was quite shy. I think she's definitely got my values and my love of nature and my wanting to protect, you know, the Arctic and the animals. Probably more of a tomboy when I was younger, a bit like her. But yeah, I love her sensitivity, and that's something I really wanted to capture, actually, because I quite like, you get all these really gung-ho sort of heroines, and she's quite gung-ho. I mean, she kind of, you know, what she does, but she's also really sensitive, and I really wanted to create quite a sensitive character that other sensitive children could relate to.
Yeah. Well, I know we're going to do a little reading, aren't we, in a second, whilst you're sort of, you know, you've got the page set up, haven't you? So the one thing that Harriet referred to was the auction, and I imagine you've created something. You've got yourself an agent, and the agent says we're going to go to auction because there's so much. What was that like? I mean, that must be incredible.
It was intense because I actually only signed with Claire, my agent. I think Claire's on and off this tonight because she's got another big launch, so she's hopping between her two clients. So I signed with Claire like the end of February. So I started the book because Isla's written a question, how long did it take you to write the book? So to give you a timeline, I started the book February 2019. I finished the first draft just before that May time. The book was ready to submit to agents the beginning of September that same year. So it was really quick. I signed with Claire 10 weeks after. She missed my submission, actually, so I had to chase her. But she was the agent I really wanted. And so I signed with her like middle of December. We did a couple of light edits over Christmas, and we went out on submission. So when you get the agent sends your book out on submission. And we went out on submission, I think the second week of January. And the next day I got an offer. It was amazing. Because I said to Claire, how long will it take? Because she was like really kind of like, really non-committal. And then I got the offer the next day, and I remember me and Chris were sitting on the sofa, and I said, I got an email, and it was like, Chris, I've got an offer. And then from there it just spiraled. Yeah. So it took a week. Yeah.
About a week of offers, but the process of an auction, is it literally just waiting for?
Well, yeah, it didn't quite, because without going into too much, the first offer was quite nice offer. So then some of the other publishers dropped out because they couldn't compete, and so that's. But so it can happen in lots of different ways. That's just what happened for me, and I was really lucky. It happened very quickly, and it happened to my dream scenario. So.
Wonderful.
But it was very exciting, but also really overwhelming. There was lots of emotions that week, and that's why when I went and met HarperCollins, I was kind of so overwhelmed. It's like a really big corporate building. It's the News Corp, the Sky Core building, in right next to the Shard, and it was like all these books by Michael Morpurgo and Narnia, and I just felt so little, I felt little for about 3 months afterwards. I couldn't catch up to what had happened.
Yeah, no, I've been to those offices. They are incredible, aren't they?
Yeah.
Neve Robinson, age 9, asked a lovely question. Hannah, please, can you tell us what inspired you to write the book?
Yeah, I think I kind of answered this already. I think it's just my love of animals. I just really wanted to capture that and show that really lovely bond that you get between animals and humans, but particularly children. When I was about 7 or onwards, I had a cat and I loved that cat, and I would wear around my neck as a scarf, and we were kind of best friends. And if I had a bad day at school, I would come home and my cat was there for me. And I've always loved animals, so it was just, I really wanted to capture that. And there's a question here that Katie Gilman's asked, where did the name April come from? I have to answer that, because if I don't, my husband's going to be kicking me. The name April actually came from my husband. We were talking about names, and he said, what about April? And I said, okay, we'll call her April. So He feels part of the book. He said, can I come on the call tonight as well? So
itching to be famous.
Yeah.
Oh, bless him. I mean, a naming thing cropped up in last night's launch event, and it's kind of an important thing, isn't it? These characters have got real personalities in your head, and to get their names right seems so important. Yeah, and I don't want a name to take over from the story. I think maybe in a fantasy book you could have much more elaborate names, but I wanted a quite normal name that didn't interfere with the reader's experience of, oh, that name really stands out. I just wanted it to be more normal. Did you play with other names for Bear? No, he was always Bear, because in the original, in my head before I started writing him, I was even toying with the idea that he was this ghost for some reason, and that you realise at the end that he was a ghost. But as soon as I started writing it, I realised he was real. And like I said, that just came out. It was like the book, almost like, it sounds really twee, but the book did kind of write itself. So that scene where she names him and she says, you're a wild animal, and you don't give a wild animal a name, that's, I'm going to call you Bear. That was kind of like, that was all just, oh, yeah, okay, well, he's Bear, obviously. Yeah. Exactly. Right, should we do that lovely book reading we had planned? Yes, okay. It's a 1-minute reading. You've got it planned, aren't you? Yes, you can remember how to read, can't you? Yes. It's like knowing all this audience, so they're kind of like... And I tell you, at the end, I'm going to show a little photo of where that little passage is based. So as soon as you're ready, Hannah, you crack on. Yeah, just to give this context, if you haven't, I know some of you have read the book already, but if you haven't read the book, it's from the very first moment that April actually encounters the polar bear. She hasn't named him by this point, so she's just found him on the beach. Okay, so he stood on his 2 hind legs, rearing up like a brilliant white stallion into the sky. With his chin extended forward confidently, he didn't look in pain. In fact, he stood in a way that indicated he knew just how magnificent he was. The combination of powerful muscle and raw brute strength took April's breath clean away, and she clapped her hands over her mouth to stop herself gasping out loud. You're incredible, she whispered, and without even knowing why, a tear trickled down her face, not because she was sad, but because it was the only way for the size of the emotion to come out. The way sometimes watching the news about the destruction of the Amazon made her scream in anger, or how some books made her want to break out in a silly song when they got to the mushy part,
or even how one or two of Dad's pieces of music stirred and twisted her emotions so much, the only way they could come out was by dancing. The feeling swung from awe to wonder to joy, and then mixed together like a milkshake, so she felt dizzy and lightheaded with them. Tor had been wrong, she thought with a smile, and for a brief moment she wished he was here with her so he could see the bear with his own eyes. I knew I wasn't imagining things, she said at last, finding her voice. I did see you that night. You are real. And then there's a little kind of glimpse of him there.
Looking very impressive. Now I'm going to share a little photo, which at the end of the book, I hope you can see this. At the end of the book, it gives a little a descriptor of where some of the inspiration came from, and this is Walrus Bay.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, so good was the descriptions that you wrote. This is exactly, I had this picture at the point. I only went to it at the end of the book when I'd finished it. But when I opened this picture and I said, "Wow, that's exactly what I had in my mind." Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so Walrus Bay is, like obviously the island is a real island that I've set it on. It's a factual island. So I've taken a fictional story and placed it within a factual setting. And so I did obviously use this website a lot to research it. And so we've got, like, we can see like the really bare, barren sort of landscape and the big skies. And just a lack of vegetation apart from this kind of gorsy stuff. And then we've got the beach, and if you look closely, there's probably old whaling bones on the beach as well. And obviously there's April's boat there, so yeah, this is it. Fantastic.
And then, and I'll show one other picture from here, which is just down a little bit, which you referenced earlier, how important that was to you.
Yeah, so like one of the themes in the book is obviously like climate change, but also there's a scene in the book where she's cleaning the beach because of the plastic. And so on this, and actually my US editor said, but would we really get that much plastic on the beach in Bear Island? And I said, yeah. So we can see on this beach that we can actually see the fishing sort of debris which has been left, and a surprising amount of plastic there. Unfortunately, for such a remote island, it does get washed up there.
Yeah. Good. Now those are very useful. And I encourage everyone. You'll find the details at the end of the book, where you can go to find the website. It's Spitzenberger-Svalbard.com. Excuse me, pronunciation.
Yeah, because Bear Island's actually part of that archipelago of islands, even though it's a long way away. It does actually belong to Svalbard. So it's a very barren, bare place. And actually, it really is uninhabited apart from the weather cabin and the weather station. And you can't, half of it is a nature reserve. I'd love to go there, but I think it's pretty impossible. So it's my dream.
There's probably aren't public flights into.
Oh no, you can only get there. One of my things, and actually, you get there by it's like a cargo boat. Then you have to take there's offshore boats, a little boat to get from the main boat to the shore, and you can only go when the tide is right because there's only a natural sort of harbour. It's all really wild, really wild.
I just saw Emma Reynolds. Whoa, wow, Hannah, that's exactly how I imagined it. So,
yeah.
Amazing. We're all seeing exactly the same way.
Yeah.
My next point on my notes was about Michael Morpurgo. I mean, how exciting must that have been to get a quote from Michael Morpurgo? I mean, that's extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, that was just like a dream come true. A lot of people ask me about that, but he really was like my sort of author hero. And I often joke that when I grow up, I want to be him. And so a few years ago, the first book I read of his was called The Butterfly Loan, which ironically is the first book that HarperCollins actually acquired or wrote with him. I didn't know that, obviously. And I just thought, wow, this is just amazing. And I really love him as a person, and his ethos and his themes are very, very similar to mine. And when I was sending my submission to my agent, I used him as a comparison, for readers of Michael Morpurgo. But at the time, I just felt ridiculous saying that, because I was like, here's me and there's Michael Morpurgo. It's one of those comedy things that you can't quite put yourself in the same sentence, but I did. And so when I met them, I said, oh, I really love Michael Morpurgo. He's such a hero of mine. I was like, you know, embarrassingly sort of fawning over him. And then when they said to me, you know, who would you like to possibly get a quote from the book? I kind of rolled out this scroll of names, but at the top was kind of capital letters, Michael Morpurgo, if you can get him. And then they just went really quiet on me. And I thought, oh, okay, well, never mind. I've maybe asked for a bit too much here. And then a couple of months later, it was a Friday afternoon, and I get this email come through, and it said, I think it just said endorsement as the subject header. And I opened it, and it says, oh, look, Hannah, we've managed to get this. And it was just this quote from Michael Morpurgo. And I cried. I was just so blown away that he would read my book, let alone endorse it. And it's just done wonders, because having his name on the cover it's just a dream come true.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Have there been other quotes from other authors?
Yeah, there have been a lot of other lovely quotes. And there's a few people on this call tonight that have very, very nicely said some lovely things about my book, some fellow authors here. So yeah, some really nice things. And, you know, like from Fiona Noble in the bookseller as well, like Harriet said at the start of the call. And, you know, fingers crossed I'll get some press reviews as well. So yeah, it's just been the support from everybody, like the bloggers, the teachers, and my author friends. It's just been such a joy.
Fantastic. How did you research living in the Arctic? The kind of process of doing that, particularly the whole experience of, you know, daylight all day, all night.
Yeah, well, I wrote the first draft, and then because I do really like going to new places, and that's why I found lockdown a bit challenging, me and my husband, we visited Norway, because the most important thing for me was to experience the midnight sun, because I knew it would have a psychological effect on the body, and I had to go there. So we went there for the midnight sun. So we went to Oslo, then we went to Tromsø for a few days, and it was just the most incredible place. I really, if you love travel, it's just such a good place to visit. So yeah, we had the midnight sun there, and it was so strange, because you're walking around at 1 o'clock in the morning, but you're buzzing because of the sunshine, and it makes you really awake, because it's like a battery that charges you up. It's such a bizarre feeling, but it was really important for me to experience that.
Absolutely. Tasha Harrison, did the characters sometimes start doing something that you hadn't planned in the plot? Did they take on a life of their own as you were writing?
That's a good question. That's a very writer question, Tasha.
Tasha.
Yeah, she's a writer. She's got a lovely book coming up 2022. It's
far deeper than I would ever ask. So
yeah. Not so much in this book, to be fair. I think I had like this, I really like wise women, sort of shamanic figures. And if you know me quite well, you'll know I'm really into that. So I had this whole shaman figure that was going to be in the book, that was there to impart wild, you know, sagely advice. And then when I started writing it, I tried to write a scene with him, and it was like, what is he doing in the book? So, you know, he just went, he literally got a paragraph. It's like, no, he's not supposed to be in the book. But the whole book had, I kicked him out, but the whole book had a life of its own. So I think they felt, the thing that, without giving a spoiler away for what happens, I did actually have an original ending. And so originally hunters were going to come onto the island and try to shoot Bear, and April was going to get in the way and get shot. And obviously when I started writing that was like, no, that's not going to happen. And somebody sent me a picture. I think these two people are on the call tonight. Somebody sent me a picture of a polar bear and a girl, spoiler, in a boat. And I was like, and that by that point I'd already written the boat on Walrus Bay, and I was like, oh, that's my ending, you know, that's what's going to happen. So yeah. So that was all in my head, but when I started writing it, it just kind of went like that. It just came out like that. So the plan in my head didn't turn out to be actually what came out on paper.
Yeah, well, the whole I talked about this earlier before we started, the whole boat bit with you know, me as a hairy old bloke, I was like screaming at them, what are you doing? You're mad. But anyway, we won't do any more spoilers. a slightly less sophisticated question that that was bugging me during the book, and it wasn't bugging me, was the polar bear diet, crackers and peanut butter. So is that really enough to fill poor bear up?
I think that's what Harry used to say as well. Look, he had to be eating something else, Hannah. He couldn't have just survived on that. So I did a lot of research about polar bears. So they need the sea ice. It's not just wanting to hunt on the sea ice. They need the sea ice to survive. So when they go onto the sea ice and the seals form a hole, in a breathing hole, the polar bears will wait on the edge of the hole until the seals come up, then they can eat them, essentially. So being on the island without any ice, it was impossible for him to catch any seals, although I did actually maybe mention that. So but he was surviving on birds and eggs and, eggs and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Emma Reynolds makes a comment. I thought it was he's filled up on oatcakes and peanuts so that he was strong enough to fish again. Yes, we know. No.
Yeah, it's just he was fishing in the lakes too. I think there's also another question by Alice Grist and her daughter Ivy. What's your favourite thing to write about? Again, that's animals and friendship and nature.
Yeah. I particularly love the fact that you pulled from the Norwegian word for something that we haven't got a word for.
Yes, would you like to pronounce it, Ben?
I was frilosliff. Frilosliff? Do you know?
No. I have got a Norwegian friend, but I don't think she's on the call tonight. So no, I don't know. I found that word in the flight magazine on the way over to Norway. Actually, I was like, oh great, look, this is a great word. I'm going to use that.
I see. So frilosliff means free air life.
Love of free air life. Yeah. Loving the outdoors.
But, and when in your process of researching, did you discover the Polar Institute?
When I went to Tromsø. Yeah. So Tromsø is a really fascinating place because it really was the gateway to those polar expeditions in the olden days, or the whaling expeditions as well, quite sadly. So they've got some really fascinating museums there. And I found out about the Polar Institute there. Yeah,
it is amazing, and the website that she puts in the back of the book gives you details there. Aisling Fowler, hi Hannah, yes. You write landscape and place so beautifully and vividly. Did the base Bear Island? Did you base Bear Island on somewhere you'd really been, or is it pure imagination? I mean, we know it exists, but there must have been a lot of that that's in your imagination.
Yeah, I think so. Ash is a HarperCollins author, actually, that's coming out later this year. So watch out for her book because it's very good. It was mostly like I looked at all the images and I saw the starkness, but then I just went into my imagination and just imagine being on a place where there really is, nobody there, nothing there, no roads, no cars, no people, just this contact with nature. And that's what I really wanted to capture, that scene that I really like in the book. It was where Bear teaches April to listen to the earth, and that for me is probably like my fundamental core point as an author. It's about our relationship with the earth, and so I really love to get that into the book. So yeah, Ash, imagination.
Absolutely. Let's talk about April's father for a little bit. I have to say, me as said, rather hairy old bloke, I felt some sympathy for him. I know he had a lot of hard work to do. He's lost his wife, and he's sort of thrown himself into his work. And there is he's alarmingly trusting, allowing April to just venture out into an island, frankly, that he doesn't know is genuinely safe. I mean,
I know there's a lot of freedom there. I think that's a couple of the criticisms where people have read it really from a very grown-up point of view and a really parental point of view. Yeah. I wouldn't let my daughter roam around the island like that, which is a fair comment, but it is obviously a children's book and there has to be like a license to roam. So I think my parents gave me a lot of freedom, I think, and obviously I said they're on the call tonight, and I really love that because, they let me sort of play in the, behind. We used to live in Cow Lane. This is a Tring thing, and there's an estate there now, but there used to be like a little wood. So me and my friend used to go and play in the woods and just sort of roam, and I've had a lot of freedom. And there was like the field of horses over the road, and I think I just wanted to capture that. They didn't try to say you've got to be here. It was like, you know, go out and play and discover, and all the traveling that I've done. My mum's never, you know, she's been sad to see me go, but she's never tried to stop me from going off exploring and finding my own feet and my own way in the world.
So you didn't have a problem creating that kind of that father figure who basically didn't. I mean, he cares, but he was so focused on his work he didn't give her the time. Well, we had to have that dynamic so she could go and have that friendship with Bear. So there was like, you know, he had to be that way in order to give the space for her to have this relationship with Bear as well. But he was never he's not a bad dad. He's perhaps not the best dad, but he's not a bad dad. Yeah. But giving her the freedom to grow actually is making her a better person, I suspect. Yeah,
and I don't think that freedom to grow is deliberate from his perspective. It's just he's so lost and he's not really seeing what's happening, and he probably sees that she's very capable anyway, and he wouldn't want to keep her tucked up in the cabin. You know, it's an island, she can't go far. You know.
Yes, there's some good questions coming in. Corinne Robinson. Although it's from Matt, your cousin, Matt Robinson.
Yes, my cousin, hello.
Do you think the book will translate well into a film?
I would love it to be a film, actually. I would really, really love it to be a film. We have got a film agent for it, a lovely, talented film agent. So I'm crossing all fingers and paws that does happen.
Yeah. And
because that just spreads the message even wider and further.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the sister question to that is there the likelihood that Bear will be seen in international languages in books around the world?
Yeah, like Harriet touched upon, we have got some translation deals in the bag, and there's a few more being sort of negotiated as we speak. So yes, definitely.
Fantastic. It will translate brilliantly into certainly Scandinavian countries, I would have thought. And
yeah, I think Denmark is one of the countries that it's definitely going to. Yeah.
Francesca Gibbons, do you have any good polar bear facts? Keep in mind, we've all seen your Twitter feed, and virtually every other tweet is some sort of polar bear doing something.
Yeah, I mean, I get quite frenzied on Twitter with my polar bear stuff. But my favourite, I've got 3 facts, and fact number 1 is that they can smell their prey from up to 15 miles away. So we often see Bear twitching his nose and smelling. They're the biggest carnivore on Earth. But when they're born, they only weigh as much as a guinea pig. They're tiny. And then fact number 3 is that their fur isn't actually white. It's translucent, but it just kind of, because it's got this kind of hollow core, it reflects the light, so it appears white. So there you go, Fran. There's your facts.
Brilliant. Richard Simpson, what's next? Is there a second book in this series?
It's the collaborative effort there with Harriet and Erica. I am writing a second book. It's a standalone, and I will say it's also got very similar kind of naturey themes, and it's set off the Californian coast, this one, and it's about grey whales.
Ooh. And does that mean we won't see anything from April again, ever? I would love to revisit April and Bear's story, so I think I would like to go back to it at some point. So yes, brilliant.
But we'll see.
Yeah, there's a few similar questions coming from quite young members.
Yes.
What's your favourite thing to write about? This is from Ivy, and there was a similar one. I need, whilst you're answering that, I'll find who the other little child was.
Yeah, and someone's put also, if you were spending 6 months on an uninhabited Arctic island, what's going in your suitcase? Love writing about animals. For me, just the relationship that children especially can create with animals, and then the interdependence between us. So what can an animal give us? How can they heal us? And what can we give them, and how can we coexist in this world together and learn from each other? I really like that. Yeah.
Sophie Kirtley asked a lovely question, actually, which is, it's one I hadn't thought about, actually. Lovely launch, congratulations, Hannah. Listening to your read, I realised how music feels such a big part of the story. Do you listen to music while you write, or is music a big part of your life?
the love of classical music from Dad is actually taken from my dad, who does love listening to classical music, often very loud to mine and Mum's annoyance. But when I write, I have to have like music, but very, very low and no lyrics. So it has to be just, you know, quite very, very gentle, so it doesn't interfere with my thinking process. But I often use songs like as a playlist, which I will kind of use in between writing. So like the song I listened to that inspired me for this book was You're My Best Friend, Queen, and Raw, Katy Perry, obviously. You know, so I can't write to them, but I will have them on as inspiration after writing.
Brilliant.
Sophie's a great writer, by the way, so thank you for that.
Brilliant, that's good. Nikki Rosengarten, what do Norwegians think of the book?
You know, I think I've only had like I had somebody on Instagram say that she was Norwegian or based in Norway and she had read it. She really liked the fact it was a book set in Norway, and she really liked the use of that word that we can't pronounce, and she would just really love seeing that in an English language book.
Melissa Welliver, I don't know if you know Melissa.
Yes.
Did the book change a lot after HarperCollins got involved?
Not hugely, no, to be honest with you. They said, and Harriet will say this again probably, it was light edits. We moved the scene where they go to the mountain, which is kind of, we moved that scene, so I think I had her go to the mountain a few chapters before with Bear, and then they went back to the mountain, so we moved it so she just went to the mountain for that pivotal scene, and we took out the earlier scene and we amplified the dad story a little bit more, and we brought Tor into it slightly more, and also kind of she wanted, in that draft that I submitted to them, I think Bear, April didn't really have any fear of Bear. She was like, hey, you know, here's a wild animal, do you want some peanut butter? So they made me put in a lot more, hey Hannah, polar bears are actually really wild and dangerous, can we put that in more? So, and also making Bear less literal. So he had to become much more polar, and their communication. So I think
were you ever going to give, was there ever a point where you
no, he was never going to speak, no. He was never going to be a singer. My friend used to shout loud, he's going to be a singing, dancing bear. He was never going to speak, but in like maybe the draft I submitted to my agent, you know, she would talk to him and he would maybe waggle his ears in response. It looked like they were having a conversation. They really made me pare that back. So when he does waggle his ears, we don't know really whether he's responding to her or whether he is just waggling his ears, you know. So it's much more sort of enigmatic, the dialogue between them.
Yeah, the Bear seems to totally understand April, which in many ways. But anyway, let's more questions. Nell Langlois, she's age 9. If it hadn't been a bear, what other animal would you have made it? I mean, surely always a bear, was it?
Yeah, I think it had to be a polar bear. I'd love to write about animals though. My favourite animal before that was a tiger, so possibly a tiger. But in the context of this story, it was only ever going to be a polar bear. And I love Bear. Bear's like my sort of creation. He's like my baby, and you know, he's so alive for me, you know. I still miss him actually, you know.
Yes. Catherine Kettle, I think I read that talked about wanting to write a book that touched on climate change. How hard did you find building, you know, such a serious subject into the narrative?
Yeah, it's quite difficult because you can't sort of obviously be that preachy about it. And one of my fears was, oh, am I being really heavy-handed here? I don't want to be like, I said this to a couple of my friends, I don't want to sound like I'm standing at a sermon or a pulpit and delivering a lecture on climate change. So, but I really like the way that I've used it in a fictional story, and I think a lot of the teachers have responded really well to that from the early reviews. They really want to use it in the classroom because it's not non-fiction. I'm telling it in a different kind of perspective. It was, the hardest part about it was the research, because I uncovered so many kind of disturbing facts about climate change and about what's happening in the Arctic and just the acceleration of the melting ice caps and the effect that is having on the polar bears. And I didn't know I didn't know the extent. So for me, the hardest part has been the discovery of that, and then thinking, well, why isn't anybody else caring as much as me? Why aren't we doing more? Because they're dying. You know, they're literally dying up there, and we're just going about our everyday lives and just as if something's happening. So that's the hardest part for me.
Absolutely. The Nicola Penfold, is it hard to move on from April and Bear to new characters? And I suppose I'm going to add to that, you know, what was it like when you wrote the last bit and you closed the laptop or whatever you write?
Yeah, it is hard to move on. I don't think I probably have fully moved on yet. There's so much in my heart, and I think there always will be, because it was such a seminal book for me in so many ways, in terms of my life and that book and the way it happened. And that's probably why I'd like to go back to it at some point, but I'll always be grateful to them, because I do love them. I just love those characters.
Jumping forward 10 years and she gets a job on where, what was I want?
Yeah. Yeah, we could see that she would go back. She would obviously, in 10 years' time, she'd be living on Svalbard and kind of like, you know, half polar bear and being some massive sort of eco sort of warrior sort of scientist over there. So yeah, in my head, she's always going back.
That's right. Aisha Bushby, I know Aisha. Congratulations, Hannah. What animals can we see feature in your future books? I mean, you gave us one clue. Are there any others?
I know we've got the grey whales. There's probably lots of animals that I'd like to feature which are endangered. I've got a special thing about pangolins, because they're the most trafficked animal in the world, and they're kind of really ugly creatures, but they really need our help. So I'd love to write about a pangolin one day.
Yeah, I totally second that. Alison Bond, great question.
Alison's my best friend, so shout out to Alison.
Yeah, I know she's brought it, reminded us about talking about the artwork, which I think deserves an extra. I mean, you knew Levi was going to work on it, so you obviously hadn't seen any of the artwork, but did you then look at what Levi's done in the past with Harry Potter and all the other stuff?
Yeah, of course. As soon as they told me that Levi was attached, and I was like, oh my God, you know, this incredible artist. And so I obviously Googled, and I went out and I bought Black Dog, and I remember just thinking, gosh, he just has so much emotion and detail, and it just felt like the perfect fit, because I think you can probably call my book very emotional and heart-centered and heart-led, and the whole core relationship is about that relationship. And I just think the detail and the emotion that he conveys in his artwork. So absolutely, I did Google him, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm so excited. And the cover, the first time that HarperCollins showed me the cover, they didn't show me any drafts. They just presented it as a done deal. And they were like, oh gosh, fingers crossed that we hope that you like it, Hannah. And I was like, oh my God, this is such a big deal. And then I opened the email and I saw it, and I was like, I just couldn't really speak, because it's such a breathtaking cover, and everybody talks about the cover, but it's just to hold it up, you know, it's just the most amazing cover, you know, that artwork, the way that the light reflects off the bear's fur. It's just incredible, and the sun, the colors. Yeah. It's just, I mean, I'm so blessed, and I'm so honored, and I feel so lucky that the book just looks so beautiful.
Yeah, HarperCollins have done, and you know, Levi, the whole team have done an extraordinary job.
Amazing, and just, you know, the lettering, the font, the gold foil.
It's a book. I think it's a book you have to have in hardback, because it is an art piece, and you know, and I know at some point HarperCollins will. That's under the sleeve, so it looks stunning. Yeah. At some point, HarperCollins will launch the paperback. That's going to be a tougher one, because the hardback's just so beautiful.
Yeah, I think the paperback's coming out. They've pushed it back now, so the hardback's going to be out for the rest of the year, because obviously it's such a pretty book, and it's a really fantastic book to gift to children, you know, for birthdays and, you know, holiday seasons and things like that. If I was a kid, I'd want 50 copies of it. You know?
In fact, Annabelle, on the same subject, Annabelle Steadman, your cover and artwork is so beautiful. Did you have any expectations, ideas about the cover before you then saw it, before you opened that email?
Yeah, they kind of like, we knew that we wanted like discussions had like been, we knew that we wanted it to kind of be a simple cover that conveyed emotion. that I wanted, you know, just maybe the girl and the polar bear, April and the, you know, we didn't want dad on the cover, we just wanted it the core relationship. But mostly I just left it, you know, we left it up to them because they're an incredibly talented team at HarperCollins, was, you know, and the people that worked in the book worked really, really hard, the art designer. And I know that they looked at, I remember this guy's left now, HarperCollins, but he said that he saw multiple drafts and each draft was just amazing, you know, and then they worked on this draft. And so it's kind of like the cover I thought, but you never quite imagine it's going to be that cover until you see the cover. It doesn't quite feel like, oh, what's it going to be? Then you see the cover and it just cements it as being your book. It's a really powerful thing. It's just a beautiful cover and I'm just so grateful.
Yeah. Well, look at the time, 5 minutes. Right, we've got 5 minutes. Anne-Marie Howe, let's change tack slightly. It's so interesting to hear about your writing process. I'm curious to know if you prefer writing, you know, the initial draft or the editing process afterwards.
I think it just depends each book to book. So for this book, I absolutely really did love writing the first draft, and I think the book 2 that I'm writing, I probably will prefer the editing process a bit more, you know, just putting it into shape. And who knows, with book 3 it might be a bit different. So are you a disciplined writer? Do you get up in the morning, think, right? I am quite disciplined, yeah. Particularly for this book, I'm just going to write this book, and I'm not going to take literally a day off. You know, I'm just going to, whatever my head says, I'm going to keep going and, you know, get it done. Yeah. Trisha Gilby, hi Hannah. I know this is the culmination of your dreams right now, but what is your biggest dream for the future? I've got so many dreams. This is kind of like I tell Harriet. I always think big, Harriet. I just want Bear to reach as many people as possible around the world, and fundamentally just make the difference I want them to make, which is to awaken people to what's happening, so we can all start taking actions, yeah, to save the Arctic and save the polar bears. So the bigger the book, that's always been my driver. The bigger the book, the better, because that way the message gets out and we save our polar bears. Katie Poles, can I ask, who is the first person you show your writing to? Given your husband downstairs, it probably is. No, he's not, because he's not really a reader. Do you have a writing group or a critique partner? No, I think my best friend. Yeah, my best friend is on the call tonight. When I first started writing Bear, she was the first person I showed the first chapter to, and she's the one I've always gone to for advice. And you're the one who asked the question earlier. Sorry, Mr. Nick. Yeah, Alison Bond. I called her Alison Puro in the acknowledgement. She goes, my name's not Alison Puro, it's Alison Bond. You know, I think I gave her husband's name, and actually she didn't change her name. But yes, her. Lovely. Her by her, whatever name she goes by, her. Listen, we've only got 3 minutes left, so should we allow you a little bit of time to say any thank yous? You may have one or two. Yes, please. Yes, I have to kind of make a note of them. Yeah, hang on, I did write some down, so excuse me. Okay, so first of all, thank you obviously to everyone at HarperCollins, my editors Harriet and Erica, and then to Nick and Anjani. Special thanks to Tina, my publicist, who's on the call tonight, and every single person there for making my dreams come true and pairing me up with Levi and getting the quote from Michael Morpurgo. And just really, most of all, just finding a publishing home that really feels like home. To Claire, I don't know whether she's on this now, but to my agent Claire, just for everything that she does and being amazing and always having my back. To all the bloggers, authors, teachers and librarians, some of whom are on this call tonight. Without your support and love this year, you've really helped just get the book out there. To the different writing groups I'm a part of, so that's D20, D21, Dream Author, The Good Ship and The Savvy. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to the wider social media people for putting up with me talking about Bear for 2 years. To my close friends and family who've known me for 20 odd years or more and put up with me of putting up with talking about my writing. To my parents, mum and dad, and to Chris, obviously, who's sitting downstairs and hopefully not getting all teary-eyed. To Bear, because he really is real to me and he is my book baby. To everybody watching live, thank you so much for being here tonight. I've been waffling on about this launch and this book for a long time, and you've put up with me. And finally, Ben, to Tring Bookshop for having me. No, absolutely my pleasure. It's been an absolutely wonderful event.
So thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Harriet. Thank you, Tina, who sits in the background and doesn't take any of the plaudits. You've obviously got a great team at HarperCollins, and so congratulations to the whole of HarperCollins for what they've done. It's an art piece, and it's obviously got an incredibly important message as well. I must thank my team in the shop as well, who've been working so hard to get all the books out and for all the events, not just this one. And we've got a number of events coming up. Monday, Lisa Jewell. Wednesday, Libby Page and Lucy Diamond. This is next week. I know Tina will be happy for me to say on Thursday we've got Adam Barron, another one of the middle grade authors at HarperCollins. And then on the 1st we've got Sathnam Sangira talking, and then Simon Mayo. So we've got a very busy schedule, honestly.
Nobody quite like Hannah Gold, so
none of them as good as Hannah Gold, except for maybe last night's authors, who are equally brilliant, who are all so. But thank you all for watching. Thank you, Hannah, and we will see you next time for Last Bear Part 2, maybe.
Yeah, no, thank you everybody for being here tonight. I've tried to look at all the comments, but it really does make me so happy, and just lots and lots and lots of love. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, guys. See you soon.
Oh, and don't forget to leave a review. I was going to say, leave a review of the book.
Brilliant. Yes, I've been through the Goodreads reviews. They're all amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. All right. Really going now. Sorry.
Thanks, everyone. See you very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.